When you wake up every single morning and you take a look in the mirror, you're 100% satisfied with every single thing. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, more or less.
Okay, dude. All right, well.
This situation is honestly one of those where the more you watch, the worse it gets. I wasn't even planning to make another video about clavicular, but this guy just keeps popping up everywhere, and every new clip somehow outdoes the last one in the most uncomfortable way possible. It's like you think you've already seen the peak of the chaos, and then boom, something even more awkward drops right after. Like he was fully leaning into being the internet's punching bag on purpose. It felt like he knew exactly what he was doing and didn't care, as long as it kept the attention rolling in. Because if you actually look at his viral clips, every single one paints him in a bad light. And that's exactly what people react to. Nobody is watching because he looks cool or impressive. People are watching because it's awkward, uncomfortable, or just straight up weird. That McDonald's clip where he starts freaking out over cheese on his burger says everything you need to know. It was messy, intense, and hard to ignore. But now I'm starting to rethink that whole idea, because the more clips I see, the less it feels like some calculated act.
I'm trying to think what else I should ask about, because it's tough because I don't want to put you in any boxes, but I'm sure there's people that probably want to know about various controversies. But if you don't want to talk about it, that's cool.
I mean, more so like to talk about like looksmaxxing in my interviews. And it's like kind of annoying because no interviewer has actually like come up with a question ever that's been more than what would be the #1 piece of advice you would recommend people to looksmaxx. I've genuinely never had a single person ask me specifics about this certain like looksmaxxing method really outside of like bone smashing or how do these two things interact, or how does looksmaxxing differ from this age to this age? Is it still possible to looksmaxx? Like, there's no effort.
Whoever is pushing his content is doing a wild job because he's literally everywhere right now. But his reactions don't always look controlled or planned. And after watching this interview, I'm not even sure I agree with my original take anymore. Something about it just feels off in a way that's hard to ignore. So recently, he sat down for an interview with Channel 5 News, and by the end of it, you can clearly tell something isn't right. He looks frustrated, visibly annoyed, and instead of wrapping things up normally, he kind of just walks out early. Maybe the interview was already close to ending, but the way it actually ends feels messy and uncomfortable, and the reason behind it makes things even more awkward. He's upset that the interviewer didn't ask enough looksmaxxing questions, which already sounds strange on its own.
Seems to be a lot of like gotcha mode, like clip farm. And
I'm
it's
not
like,
doing that.
Well, I mean, yeah, you are a little bit to a degree.
I don't think so. I think when you see the full presentation, it's not really going to be edited or clipped in the same way that you might.
Well, just because it's not the worst interview I've had. I mean, like you had like a couple of ones that you were trying to sneak in with like, oh, what is slut hate? It's like,
yeah, I mean, it's the second, letter in the.
But I mean, like you know what you're intentionally trying to do.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out because like why that's a part of why it's a pretty strongly worded forum and subculture.
Yeah, and that would be fine if that question was in there because it's decently relevant to the culture, but there was not even a single genuine attempt at like a specific looksmaxx question.
But then it gets worse. He actually gets annoyed when the interviewer says he's fine with how he looks. That's the part that really stands out in a bad way. He treats it like it's a problem, like someone being okay with their own appearance genuinely bothers him. And yeah, at that point, it stops being funny and just becomes straight up uncomfortable to watch because it starts to feel like he expects everyone to think exactly the same way he does. It's like he expects everyone to care about this the same way his audience does. But outside that niche, most people just don't. That's the reality of it.
Well, I'm not in the looksmaxxing community. I'm trying to learn about it. Not everyone talking to you is going to be a niche person who knows about all the methods.
Well, I mean, like, yeah, I know you're not in the looksmaxxing community, but you didn't even ask a looksmaxxing question, like at all. You don't need to be in the looksmaxxing community to ask a looksmaxxing question.
What do you mean by looks? I think we've been talking about looksmaxxing this whole time.
We've been talking about like the philosophy behind it, and it's.
You want me to ask you a scientific question about looksmaxxing?
I just think it's kind of funny how that's really never been done with the amount of like media appearances.
These interviews aren't happening because people are trying to learn how to Looksmaxx. They're happening because he's trending and pulling in views, plain and simple. Nobody needs some deep breakdown of this stuff either. You watch a couple TikToks and you already get the idea. And when you really look at it, none of it is even new. It all falls into the same predictable lanes. Basic things like getting lean or just growing into your appearance, then the strange pseudoscience like bone smashing, and then the risky side where people mess with substances trying to force results. There's nothing groundbreaking here, no matter how it gets packaged or hyped up. And that's exactly why this interview feels so off, because even he admits the questions are relevant to his community, but then still complains they're not about Looksmaxxing. That contradiction just doesn't add up. Just because the questions weren't what he expected doesn't mean they weren't connected to what he talks about. And that's where things start to get uncomfortable, because it feels like he wanted a completely different kind of interview, something that stays inside his world instead of questioning it or looking at it from the outside. Once it steps out of that bubble, everything changes. Inside that space, it probably sounds normal, maybe even convincing. But outside of it, it comes off as strange, almost hard to follow. And once people start seeing it that way, it's really hard to shift that perception back. Now it's not even coming across like someone playing a character anymore. It's starting to feel like he genuinely believes everything he's saying, and that shift changes everything. It's like he's right on the edge of realizing how people actually see him and this whole scene, but he just can't fully connect the dots. But something just isn't clicking here, because it's really not that hard to understand why most people aren't into the Looksmaxxing scene. Either they're already fine with how they look, or even if they're not trying to go to the extreme levels this community keeps pushing. And once you actually get that, it explains everything. People are way more interested in the mindset behind it rather than the actual methods, because a lot of those methods just look unhealthy from the outside. Telling people, especially younger guys, to mess with hormones, peptides, or run cycles isn't something most people are going to take seriously in a good way. Then you get these moments where he starts arguing over stuff that honestly doesn't even need to turn into a debate. He's trying to compare what he does to traditional media and then gets frustrated when the interviewer pushes back on that.
Well,
now they will.
Well, that's quite literally what a lot of your companies, your
What do you mean, your companies? You think I work for like Time Warner or something?
Your press companies, you work for Channel 5?
It's a YouTube channel called Channel 5. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I'm the CEO of my own company. I don't have any agenda to play here.
Holy semantics, dude. Like,
it's a pretty big difference between working for an affiliate news station like Channel 5, the TV company.
Well, way to diminish your channel, but once again, semantics.
But that's not just some small wording issue. There's a real difference there, and it feels like he didn't fully understand the type of interview he was walking into. And instead of adjusting to that, he doubles down and pushes back on things that aren't even the main problem. That's where it starts to feel off, because the energy is going in the wrong direction. Now, it would be easy to just say he doesn't know what he's talking about and leave it there. But after watching more of the interview, it's honestly not that simple. The entire conversation stays centered on Looksmaxxing. It never really drifts away from it. So the frustration doesn't seem to come from the topic itself, but more from how the topic is being framed. Most of the focus is on the negative side, the controversial parts, the stuff people criticize the most. And if you try to see it from his perspective, that might be exactly what's bothering him. It's not just that it's being talked about, it's the angle it's being presented from. And that clearly doesn't sit right with him. It really feels like what he actually wanted was for the conversation to highlight the positive side. Going to the gym, taking care of yourself, the basic stuff people already understand. But he never clearly says that. Instead, it comes out as frustration that the questions aren't what he expected, even though they're still obviously connected to what he talks about. And this is where things start to get a lot deeper. Because it doesn't seem like the real issue is the questions themselves.
So the fact of the matter is, like, you guys specifically reach out, we want to interview him about Looksmaxxing, and then you'll start asking like political questions, and I'm just like, okay, like I don't mind it, you know what I mean? I'm not really like afraid or whatever to answer anything. You know, gone through every single question of yours besides the one about my security, which is a little bit weird. But yeah, not a single attempt at anything in regards to Looksmaxx.
It feels like what's actually bothering him is that the interviewer isn't asking how to improve his own appearance. Like that's the moment he's waiting for. That validation, that opening to explain how someone should change themselves. Once you notice that, everything else starts to click into place. At a certain point, it stops feeling like a performance entirely. It doesn't come across like someone playing a role anymore. It starts to feel real in a way that's kind of uncomfortable to watch. Even his own chat started turning on him at one point, which is wild when you think about it.
What's a question I should ask?
Well, that's up to you. It's
Well,
like,
you're
what am
telling
I going to tell you how to do your job?
You tell
I
me
mean,
you want me to ask you about specific scientific questions about different Looksmaxxing methods.
well, I mean, just
And you're not happy with the question about the peptides or the bone smashing or anything like that.
I mean, like, can you not identify like anything that you have a curiosity about? Like maybe, you know, you wake up with dark circles in your eyes one morning, and like, you know, even something like that. I mean, just like even if you don't give a shit, I mean, like it would be like at least, you know, you put a little bit of effort into.
I think I've done a pretty good interview.
When your own audience begins questioning you in real time, that usually means something isn't landing right. And you can actually see that shift happening as the interview goes on. It honestly felt like he got so locked in on not hearing the question he wanted, that his brain flipped it into thinking there were no real questions being asked at all. And that's the moment where you start to see what's really going on underneath everything. Because yeah, on the surface, the Looksmaxxing angle clearly worked for him in terms of attention. But underneath that, it starts to show a completely different picture. He got the attention, built a following, and he's clearly making money. But underneath all that, it doesn't really look like anything changed on the inside. Because if you reach a point where you've done all this, changed your appearance, built an audience around it, and you still can't accept how you look, then it was never really about appearance in the first place. At that point, it's something deeper, and that's where it gets uncomfortable. The fact that he got genuinely upset at someone saying they're okay with how they look says a lot, because most people wouldn't even react to that. But for him, it's almost impossible to accept, and that usually means he's projecting his own mindset onto everyone else. He's moving through all of this knowing he's still not satisfied, even after everything he's done. And now it feels like he's convinced himself that everyone else must feel the same way too, which just isn't reality. And when you really look at it like that, it's actually kind of sad, because it shows that no amount of attention, money, or changing your appearance is going to fix something that isn't actually about how you look.
From what, like, context? Because if it's from the context of what you guys reached out was your intention, then I would say that you've done a pretty job.
All right, well, I think people probably want to learn about you, and that was what I was trying to give you the opportunity to do.
Well, no, I know. I think that's totally fair, and that's I applaud you for that. But not one, you know, question about Looksmaxxing.
There's been so many questions about Looksmaxxing. I probably asked you about Looksmaxxing like 40 times.
If you're not okay with yourself at a basic level, nothing external is going to solve that, no matter how far you take it. This whole situation honestly proves that point. And now, I'm not even sure if this is all part of an act anymore. A week ago, it might have seemed at least a little calculated, but after watching this, it feels way too real to just be a character. Ending an interview because someone says they're fine with how they look isn't something that's easy to fake. Now, I want to hear what you think about all of this. Do you think he's playing a role and leaning into it for attention? Or do you think this is actually who he is behind the scenes? And be real. Do you think this whole Looksmaxxing space is actually helping people? Or is it slowly making things worse? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now, because that's where the real conversation happens. If you want more breakdowns like this, hit that subscribe button, leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and share this with someone who needs to see it. Don't forget to tap the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you didn't like the video, that's fine too. Drop a dislike and say why. Feedback is feedback, and it all counts. Appreciate you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.